Cisco Systems donating $6 million. The list goes on, but it also includes small businesses like BlueFly.com, which is donating 9,000 square feet of prime midtown office space to companies suddenly left homeless.
Domino's Pizza offered to send pizzas up for the new tenants, and we've had people who have volunteered engineering services and computer services and furniture rentals. So it's been pretty surprising, and we're obviously grateful for the response that's followed on from this.
The Silicon Alley Reporter is another local business that's also offering free office space, and it says there are other reasons for companies to step up their generosity.
We have to realize that one of the reasons that people did this was to screw up our economy. It wasn't just to psychologically scar us, to kill people. They want to shut down the economy, and these companies, mid-sized companies, small-sized companies, are the bulk of our economy, and they're going to go out of business, and people are going to lose their jobs.
And Lou, one of the new tenants in the new office space, a man by the name of Bruno Dellinger, used to work at a marketing consulting firm housed in the World Trade Center. He says it's important to send the perpetrators of Tuesday's attack a message that life goes on and that literally New York's financial district will rise again. And that's very encouraging, obviously.
Encouraging, moving. I have to say, at least for myself, General Electric's $10 million to the families of those firemen and policemen who lost their lives fighting this devastation and this terrible tragedy is, to me, just singular in its focus and its generosity. So I think
and the calls keep coming in, the faxes and the emails. They're not alone.
Terrific. Susan, thanks a lot. Well, as we've just reported to you, three suspects, if you will, have been detained at JFK International Airport here in New York. In order to carry out those actions, federal authorities had to shut down all three New York airports within just the last half hour or so. But around the country, airports today began opening up, and we want to turn to our colleague Casey Wyan in Los Angeles at Los Angeles International Airport to bring us that part of the story. Casey?
Well, Lou, you're seeing something behind me that we haven't seen here at Los Angeles International Airport in 2 days, and that is airline passengers. The FAA gave the go-ahead for the airport to begin operations earlier this morning, and the first flight arrived about 10:30 a.m. local time. It was an Alitalia MD-11, originally departing from Milan, that was diverted on Tuesday to Calgary. It finally arrived at its destination this morning, 2 days late. Other travelers began lining up for a limited number of departing flights on a limited number of airlines. New security procedures, of course, are in place, and LAX recommended that passengers arrive 2.5 hours early, even for domestic flights.
They're pretty confident, too. I mean, lots of safety measures have been put into place, and it's obvious that, things are quite different around here. So they just want me to get home, too.
Now, those new security measures, which of course are extraordinary in nature, involve no more curbside check-ins. And at least at Los Angeles, no passenger cars are even allowed anywhere near the terminal area. They have to park at satellite lots and take shuttle buses into the terminal. No e-ticket check-ins. Everyone must report to ticket counters whether they have baggage to check or not. Only passengers with identification, photo identification, and tickets will be allowed into boarding areas. All carry-on bags will be searched. All airplanes will be searched for security precautions before passengers board those planes. There will be an increased presence of federal air marshals on all flights, and of course, no knives, not even pocket knives. All this, of course, is expected to add up to more costs for the airline industry, which even before these events occurred this week was already struggling. Analysts projected that the airline industry would lose between $1.5 and $3 billion this year, wiping out all of its profit from last year. Those losses, Lou, are expected to mount in the wake of this tragedy.
Casey, thank you very much. Casey Wyan from Los Angeles International Airport. We mentioned the good fortune of the 3,700 employees, nearly all of them at Morgan Stanley at the World Trade Center. The inverse of the story is Cantor Fitzgerald, the largest bond broker in the country. About 1,000 employees, most of those at the top, the uppermost floors of the World Trade Center. Peter Viles is here with that part of the story. Peter?
Lou, if what happened at Morgan Stanley is a miracle or a near miracle, the folks at Cantor Fitzgerald, the hundreds of employees there, are looking tonight for a miracle, hoping for a miracle. This is one of the biggest bond trading firms in the world. Very heavy losses at Cantor Fitzgerald.
It is the saddest vigil you can imagine. Scott Hazelcorn's parents.
It's not even revenge. I mean, I just want to hear my son's voice.
The members of Jun Koo Kang's church.
We all pray every night.
John Perconti's wife, expecting their child in December.
He called me at 10 to 9 and said, our building has just been hit by a plane, turn on the news. And I changed the channel and I saw what happened. And I said, oh God, John, please get out of there safely. And he said, I love you, I have to go.
What links these stories is that all the missing worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, all above the 100th floor of the North Tower, the first one hit. Cantor is not a glamorous firm, but it is crucial, one of the world's largest bond trading firms. 1,000 people worked up there, fewer than 300 are accounted for, but it is not clear any of those now safe were on the top floors Tuesday morning.
I don't think anybody got out at this point, but we pray for miracles.
Scott Hazelcorn's parents suspect that their son did not run for his life.
He didn't care about himself. He only cared about his friends.
If Scott was there and he was getting out, he'd probably help everybody up in front of him. That's the kind of kid he was.
They gather at a city-designated center for relatives of the missing on 26th Street, where trees have become pleas for help. And further uptown at the Pierre Hotel, a gathering site for Cantor Fitzgerald families.
I don't think the company has the information that we need. I think they're sharing everything they know, but we have not heard of
Okay.
to validate any stories that we've heard.
The city has set up official clearinghouses for information on the missing, and the families we spoke to have been to those clearinghouses, but they are convinced that every extra effort that they can make on behalf of their loved ones is at this hour worth making. Lou?
Pete, thanks very much. Well, Secretary of Treasury Paul O'Neill cut short his trip to Japan to return to the United States as we begin to watch these markets come back to life. Secretary O'Neill held a press conference this afternoon in which he said that the U.S. markets remain strong and resilient. Tim O'Brien has the story for us tonight from Washington. Tim?
Lou, Secretary O'Neill was back at work today, cutting short an official visit to Asia. He said he kept in touch with the Treasury Department, the Fed, the administration, and financial markets while away. And in a brief statement to reporters, he said the United States has every reason to maintain its confidence in the U.S. economy. And then he added this.
This tragedy will cause some short-term dislocations. Supply disruptions are real, as some transportation stopped or slowed for several days this week. These effects will be transitory as transportation flows return to normal.
O'Neill said the country's economy is not located in any one place, that innovation and productivity are found in every factory and every farm, every laboratory, every financial institution, every small business, and every home office across America. In a calamity of this magnitude, however, there will surely be ripple effects a long way down the road. One may involve the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank, which are scheduled to be held here in Washington September 29th and 30th. Sources close to the decision-making process tell CNN there is a, quote, high probability that these events will either be postponed or canceled altogether as a result of Tuesday's attacks. Lou?
Tim, thanks. Tim O'Brien from Washington. The Pentagon now says it will launch sustained military strikes against those responsible for Tuesday's attacks against the United States. Today, Deputy Defense Secretary Paul Wolfowitz said that those options will include the full array of America's military power. I'm joined now by former Defense Secretary William Cohen, who is also our Moneyline regular contributor. Bill, good to have you with us.
Lou?
At this point, as the search goes on for those responsible, it is becoming increasingly clear that the administration, that the agencies, the Justice Department, and other agencies are focusing on Osama bin Laden. Is there any surprise in this for you?
Not really. He is prime among the suspects, but I should point out that we ought not to focus on Osama bin Laden solely. We have to go after the terrorist network, and that means going well beyond one individual. And that's why I think Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz, Secretary Powell, and Secretary Rumsfeld and others, the President, have indicated this is going to be a long sort of twilight struggle, if I can use John Kennedy's words, against an unspeakable evil. And it's not going to be over with one strike. There'll be multiple strikes, and it won't only involve military application. We need to apply diplomatic, economic, the full range of pressure that we can upon all those governments and countries and organizations who lend safe haven, provide financial or moral support to these groups who are determined to try to bring us down to their level.
The President has made it clear that this is war, and today, with considerable emotion, frankly holding back tears, he talked about the loss and the fact that he would prosecute those responsible to the fullest extent. Do you think that anything less would suffice here?
Oh, I think nothing less. The President expressed profound sadness and grief, anger, and above all, resolve and determination. I would say that he and his administration will work with the Congress, which, by the way, is about to appropriate some $20 billion, and that's just a first down payment on what will be required. But there is unanimity in this Capitol. There's unanimity in both parties. They're going to lend their full support behind the President in this war against the terrorists.
Bill Cohen, thanks for being with us. Thank you. Well, the Chicago Board of Trade today reopened for business. At noon Eastern Time, traders and staff halted for a minute of silence in tribute to those victims who died in the terrorist attacks in New York City and in Washington, D.C. It was a sobering sight. It is in a bond pit that is normally loud and animated, and as you are about to see, it was absolutely silent. On a personal note tonight, the husband of our colleague, Lisa DeLallo, like so many, is missing. Tom Clark is among those who worked in the World Trade Center. Tom, in this picture, is shown with his son Matthew. He works for Sandler O'Neill on the 104th floor of Building 2, the South Tower of the World Trade Center. Lisa last heard from him at about 9 o'clock Tuesday morning, right after the first explosion. If you have any information about Tom or any other Sandler O'Neill employees, please call 212-714-7826, 212-714-7826. Our thoughts tonight are with Lisa, her family, and all of those who still search for relatives and friends in the debris of what was the World Trade Center. For tonight, that is Moneyline. We thank you for being with us. I'm Lou Dobbs. Now back to Bill Hemmer and Joey Chen.
All too human. Thank you, Lou. A few housekeeping notes before we move on here. The Capitol all clear. Members of the House and Senate allowed back in about 30 minutes ago, in case you missed that, and also 3 men detained at JFK Airport in New York. But still, it appears that stop down does continue for JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, the 3 major airports serving the New York area.
We're continuing to follow up on those things. You know, Lou's last comments there about his colleague and her husband, who is still missing at this point, really brings to mind, you know, a lot of people have asked us over the years as journalists, doesn't it ever bother you to see the horrible things that you have to cover?
And it does.
And it does. And I think people forget that we are human too, and sometimes our pain too enters into the story, as it did this afternoon. Our colleague Elizabeth Cohen out of the New York Armory in New York, meeting with so many of the families there, so desperately looking for those who are missing now. We want to bring you a little bit of Elizabeth's encounter with one of those family members right now. Listen.
Andrew called Erica right after the first plane